Alright, legends, we're back at it once again with another little chat about Masters of the Universe Revelation. This episode is the second episode of part 2, so that is what? 5, 7. Episode 7, essentially, in the whole run. It's called Reason and Blood. This one here is a severely simple little episode. At the end of the last one, we seen Prince Adam calling down the power of Grayskull without the sword, and at the beginning of this, it's pretty much a flat out fight between the Hulk. Let's just say it's He-Man without the power sword. What would happen if he calls down the power? Turns out that the power sword is very, very much needed when he changes into what is meant to be He-Man in this episode. If just essentially becomes the Hulk, a rage of anger and emotions. There's nothing there to balance out the power. So Skeletor is up against it in a big bad way, and it's pretty much just a flat out fight between the two of them. For the people that are complaining in part 1 of the series that there was next to near no fighting between He-Man and Skeletor, you get that made up in a big way in this episode. They go at it for quite a while in this episode, and Teela and Andra and Cringer, they're left to fight the army of the undead. To cut a long story short, it's just, I could go scene by scene, punch by punch. I'm not going to do that. They fight in a major way, trying to get away from the army of the undead. Skeletor and He-Man are fighting. Skeletor's using all the arsenal that he has as far as magic goes to try and defeat the barbarian version of He-Man. To not much luck, they're pretty evenly matched, and it's shot for shot fight, punch for punch, kick for kick. You do still see, even in He-Man, Prince Adam, whatever you want to call him, Hulk, He-Man, you still see that little piece of control in there, even though he's a rage of emotion during the fight. You see him being smart about a few things, but it is flat out anger. He-Man and Teela and Andra and Cringer eventually end up on the one spot together during this fight. Teela realises that they're surrounded, they're completely beaten at this point, and she decides to try and get out the way they came in, and she recalls the incantation. That is a huge word for this time of the night. The incantation that the sorceress used to send them away from Castle Grayskull. She recites that herself and recreates the same spell and transports them away from the palace and the battle to safety in the Mystic Mountains. Skeletor is not one bit happy that they managed to get away from him, and he returns to Castle Grayskull to take it out on Evelyn, her being the new sorceress and that, and he wants to work out why Prince Adam was able to call down the power without using the power sword. As far as he's concerned, when he gets to Grayskull, she's a sorceress. The only way the power can come down is through her. Did you give it to him? And she's like, no, I didn't. So Skeletor pretty much spends the rest of the episode trying to work out how the heck this happened, and he's not going to be happy until he's able to call the power down without the sword. And when he can do that, he'll kill everybody. But he wants Prince Adam, He-Man, Hulk, whatever he is right now, to stay safe until he can work this out, and he's going to take him out himself. There is you get to see what happened to Man-at-Arms in this episode. He's in the dungeon along with the, and I made a note of this because main names doesn't go down too well. He is trapped in a cell along with the Orlax of Primaria. It's like this creature with all these tentacles. It's impossible to kill it. That's why it was locked up and the dungeons and Greyskull to keep it out of, to keep everybody safe from it, basically. So he's in there with this thing, 36 hours, whatever it was, no sleep. This thing just is relentless, and Skeletor turns up and puts it to sleep, and Man-at-Arms is pretty surprised. He's like, why didn't you just kill the thing? I'm surprised you didn't do that with all this new found stolen energy that you've got now, all this new magic. And Skeletor's like, I'm keeping you safe, I'm keeping you alive out of respect, really, because soldiers like you and me should die in battle in a cage. So he starts questioning Man-at-Arms about every time that Prince Adam calls down the power, and he wants to know everything as manipulation of the power, is the way he puts it. And Man-at-Arms is like, well, that's why you're always going to lose if you think of it as manipulation. You're completely off the mark there. The reason everybody followed Prince Adam as He-Man is because he was, in Duncan's eyes, the strongest man ever, because he had the power to actually return the power and not keep it, and he only called it down if someone needed it. He only used it to help other people, so he was giving the power away. He wasn't using it for his own advantages. And yes, so Skeletor's like, tell me more. He's really trying to work this out and understand it, and get everything in his corner so that he can just rule the universe and kill everybody, essentially. Back in the Mystic Mountains, the heroes are now stuck with a problem. We've got He-Man in the form of crazy Hulk He-Man, and the anger is not subsiding. He's ripping trees out of the ground, and actually kills a Manticore, and he's got blood on his hands. And we get a scene where I thought they were going to go down the Avengers route, where the way Black Widow had the little rhyme to bring down the Hulk, get him calmed down so he could turn back on the banner again. They were going to go down that road, and they lead you kind of in that direction. They don't do it. Tila is trying to talk him down. She's making some headway, but she makes the mistake of mentioning her family and Adam's family. We've all made mistakes and whatnot. And she mentions Adam's father. Now, the thing about Prince Adam and King Randor is King Randor always looked at Adam as the disappointment in the family. In the original series, he was always hoping that Prince Adam would become more than what he was showing himself as throughout the episodes, because if he wasn't in the form of He-Man and just Prince Adam, he kind of had the classic Clark Kent Superman double personality sort of thing. He'd be He-Man, he'd be the big hero, but whenever he was Prince Adam, he was kind of clumsy, incredibly lazy, kind of just he was the royal prince, and he was just living life and just breezing past and no responsibilities whatsoever. And King Randor always kind of had a chip on his shoulder about this, and we did see that in the opening episode of this series whenever Tila was getting named as Man-at-Arms. She was getting promoted, and Adam commented on how proud Duncan was of his daughter, and King Randor said then that that's parental pride. That's something I wish I could feel for you one day. Bit of a cold dig at him in episode 1, and of course at the end of that episode he gets killed and we go on the adventure. But when Tila mentions King Randor, not by name but calls him your father, the anger comes straight back up again. That anger towards his father is what's driving him at the moment. He's not in a good place. It's like all his demons are playing on him in this episode, and he actually has Tila by the arm at this point, and he's really starting to hurt her. But then they hear this horn blowing way off in the distance, and he lets her go, runs into the forest, and we come out into a clearing where we see this like castle up in the background and all these tents in the foreground of it, and it's Point Dread. That is the place where the evacuation from the royal palace was going, and Point Dread is shrouded from the eyes of Skeletor's magic. It's, a safe zone connected to Castle Grayskull. So as long as they're in this vicinity of Point Dread, nobody's going to find them. They're relatively safe there. And of course they see the main tent in the middle of the clearing with all the smaller tents around it, and it has the royal seal on it. And Teela again makes the mistake of saying out loud that King Randor is there, and at this point Hulk He-Man, hearing her say that, goes off in one and takes a full head-on attack towards the encampment. He's going to go after the king, and of course the royal guards there, they do their best to try and fight this crazy Hulk-like creature, and he's taking them out left, right and centre, and eventually they manage to get him tied up with, the lassoing him with ropes and chains and whatnot. And at this point, in all fairness, he has been through a lot in this form of the crazy Hulk like He-Man, and he's starting to burn himself out a little bit. He's starting to weaken. Like these guys that are holding him back at this point, he could easily have taken any of those guys out at full strength, but he's been burning energy the entire time since he transformed into this version of himself, and they subdue him slightly. And I was, in all honesty, I was expecting that it would be Queen Marlena that brings him down, but it's not. It's actually Randor himself. He comes out, he sees Hulk, He-Man, tied up with these guys getting held back, and he recognises the eyes of his son in there, and of course Teela been with him. He's like, could it be? And he's just grateful at this point for a second chance with his son. And last thing I was really expecting Randor was just to go straight for the heart of the matter, and just like, I'm the king, I've had a lot of success at it, but I completely failed as a father, and I apologise. This He-Man is still angry at this point, and he actually breaks free from the ropes, and he does one of these where he lifts the two hands up in the air, and he's about to drive his fists down onto Randor's head, and drive him into the ground like a 6-inch nail, and stops, because the last thing he was expecting to happen was Randor at this point steps in and hugs his son, and he's like, I never told you, but I'm proud of you. It takes somebody really strong to wield the power, but it takes somebody even stronger than He-Man to hand it back. And I'm proud of you, son. And pretty much, it's the words that Prince Adam has been needing to hear for a lot of years. And the tear rolls down his cheek, and there's a little flash and wind all over the place, and he's back to the form of Prince Adam, and they embrace each other, and it's a nice father-son moment. Back at Castle Grayskull, at the end of the episode, we get to see Evelyn up in the private quarters of the sorceress, and she has a back and forth with Beastman, and she's like, why do you follow? And I was kind of expecting this from her after the last episode. Everything that happened, every manipulation that Skeletor put her through, and her finding out that he was actually orchestrating absolutely everything to get her to a point to make what happened, and for her to become the new sorceress. Now she's trapped to the castle, being the new sorceress. So I'm expecting a big backstab. I think when it comes down to it, the key player that's going to not take Skeletor out, but put him into a position where he can be taken out, is going to be horror, and it's going to be out of pure revenge on her part. But you know, Beastman actually says it to her in this episode, where she questions, why do you follow him blindly? And he's like, I'm not a leader. I just carry out orders. And Evelyn is like, it's not true. Like, you led armies. Whenever he was gone, like, you were doing this, that. The leadership capabilities are there. But he's like, no, it's just, I'm just not a leader. And he actually brings up the question, maybe it's time that you should lead us instead of Skeletor, because any power that he has now flows through you. You hold all the cards here. So he's putting the idea forward there for this to maybe happen, and she quips back quickly that, if you ever, I'm going to pretend that didn't come out of your mouth and get out of here before like a skin you, wear you like a fur coat. That's along the lines of one of the, like in the original series, like Skeletor was always these threatening one-liners, and this was like right out of his playbook, her saying that. So when he leaves the room, she actually uses the mirror in the room to, and we've seen the sorceress doing this from time to time throughout the original series too. They can use it like a looking glass to see different parts of Eternia, and she can use the magic to call up whatever she wants through these mirrors. And she sees the image of Prince Adam and King Randor hugging each other in the field, and she asks the mirror to show her every example of the power being relinquished, whether willingly or not. So at the end of this episode, you're actually getting that actually hides nothing. She is going to go after Skeletor at some point. So, a woman scorned, as they say. I enjoyed this episode. It was not much really for an episode that was pretty much all action and whatnot. I've talked quite a bit about it, but whenever I start these reviews, I script nothing, because I used to do that, but it just sounded like you were reading the whole time. It just doesn't sound natural. I'm not the strongest reader or the quickest reader you'll ever get in your life, and I can hear a fly somewhere. It's driving me crazy. But goodness knows what's going to come out of my mouth until I hit the record button. So it is what it is. I'm enjoying this series immensely so far. But there's a guy, Chris, that I've met online. We've talked back and forth about not just this series but the original one as well. And he's actually seen all the episodes in part 2 so far. I haven't. I'm going one episode at a time, recording a review. And he enjoyed it, was very satisfied with it, but I did say he preferred the first 5 episodes. So, I can see that at this point, 2 episodes into this part 2 run. I can see I kind of agree with that at this point. Chris, you're spot on there. I think so far the storytelling in the first part was a lot stronger than this one, but a lot of fan service going on here. I'm enjoying it, and tomorrow we're going to get on do 2 of them. I don't know if I can promise that right now, but we will have an hour review up tomorrow night. So until then, guys, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all then.